All right, everybody, and I do mean everybody. Well, welcome back to the Get on the horn there and see if we have any more.
Buy, sell, short, buy, short.
Lot of selling today. Is it Fed induced? I guess real quick. You think that whole panicky kind of thing was just like get the news out of the way, and then we needed it. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, look. The Fed certainly was the catalyst intraday for a whoosh down. Initially, there was a whoosh up, and then big whoosh down into the close. I think you just sort of said it well, though. Like the market sort of needed this. The greed in the. I think we talked about this just even last week. The greed in the crypto world and in the crypto miners world and in a lot of cloud stocks and semiconductor stocks and technology investing in general, the greed is palpable, and it's good to whoosh some of that out and get some of, I guess you call it weak hands, but paper hands, whatever. I imagine there's even some people who thought they were diamond hands until today probably puked some of their crypto miners into that action at the close. But
we also call them lettuce hands.
Lettuce hands. I hadn't heard that one. That's good.
Yeah.
We are short. We own puts mostly, but we have puts on quite a few Bitcoin miners, and bought some more today while they were up. Maybe trimmed a few, had some limit orders hit as they got crushed into the close. But I think we've talked about this too, right, Cabana, that I fully expect that the halving is going to be disastrous for the publicly traded Bitcoin miners whose valuations depend on the previous bit hash rate, production rate that they were getting. Riot makes, 18 Bitcoin a day. What's the one that you were telling me supposedly does 10 a day, but probably is not true?
I think.
Yeah.
Makes 10 a day.
Who was it?
Cypher.
So we've got puts on quite a few, not Riot, but we do have puts on Cypher and Clean Spark and some others.
About Mara or whatever it is.
We traded some puts on Mara. Even didn't mean to do a trade, but we bought puts when it was up a bunch and then sold the puts when it was down later in the day. So yeah. So look, I mean, I think we need to watch greed out of the system, and the markets are one of the most important guides for me in the markets, whether we're talking crypto or stocks or real estate or anything. Is markets tend to make a fool out of most people most of the time, and I have been a fool by the markets. I've been made a fool by the markets many times in my career. And it's usually when I'm feeling greedy or scared that it's worse. And I think, again, there's a lot of greed. The shorts have been scared. The bulls and longs have been greedy, and we get a little comeuppance today.
Well, there we go. We have been joined, thankfully. No, I could listen to Cody all day. But yeah, we got Sanatsi here. We got the American Badass, which I like the graphic name title now.
Joe, I'm so glad that you just have fully embraced.
He's just embraced it. So that's good.
Yeah, man.
Sorry, I was late. I was redoing my office. I got rid of all my.
You did.
Do you know what that is?
Big Bada Boom.
It's an ode to my favorite movie.
Do tell.
And what's just above that? Something, what drills?
Corbin Dallas.
Corbin Dallas.
Oh.
So what's the movie?
The Fifth Element.
Oh, sure. Great movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a rare. You just randomly pick that movie as your favorite, but full
Maybe
credit.
rare. I've seen it probably. I've probably seen it 50 times. I love it.
Oh.
Maybe not 50.
I've seen it once at the movie theater, like 25 years ago.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. That's Bruce Willis.
Mila Jovovich.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, he's a taxi driver. He's a cab driver Yeah, I've seen it once. Good movie.
Yeah, it's the more you watch it, the better it is.
I might
It's
have to
great.
watch it again.
It's got some sappy, goofy parts, but Chris Tucker, probably one of the greatest performances of his career. I've got.
He's hilarious when he's
Oh my
hilarious.
god, it is. He plays an amazing character in that movie.
Cool. So that was let's just hit on crypto a little bit. We talked markets, which is related. Like the Fed also impacted not just the Bitcoin miners and the stock market in general. It certainly hit the Bitcoin itself today. I guess I listened to the first 20 minutes of Powell's droning, mindless banter bullshit, and I have to turn it off after a while. My wife actually stopped by and dropped off lunch for Bryce and I, and she said, "Do you think Powell's smart?" And I thought
The drone Powell.
because I was like, "Well, he certainly moves markets. He's very powerful." She goes, "I didn't ask if he was powerful. It asked if he's smart." And I had to admit that no, I'm not a Greenspan fan. I'm not a Fed fan. If you Google Cody Willard and the Fed, you'll see me on Fox News telling people I'm on their side who want to end the Fed. Now, that being said, I do think Greenspan was smart. I don't know that Powell is anything but sort of a cog in a wheel who does what he's told.
If we get out of this without like a huge recession, I think history will look back on him favorably either. Or even if he's not smart, I think he'll be like the figurehead to be like, hey, he was the guy in charge at that time. And
he'll be revered the way that Bernanke wishes he was revered.
The Ben Bernanke. Yes.
Bernanke, Mr. Bubblehead Ben Bernanke, as I called him on Fox in my days. He wrote a book about about how brave he was to act with other people's money. He called it The Courage to Act. And he was like, so proud. To this day, he is so proud of himself and pretty sure he should take credit for the entire Western economy of the globe not collapsing, even though they did collapse and all they did was bail out the banks.
It's bad enough the elected officials are tough to deal with. It's the unelected ones that are really tough.
Isn't that the truth? The bureaucrats are worse than the politicians.
Oh, friends of politicians. Right there, that's a bad sign right there.
Oh. Powell, a PhD Harvard educated or some shit, but I give no credit for that.
No.
So
no. And
let's move on from, unless anyone else has crypto discussion they'd like to hit on. We've got some space news to go over now that Mr. Dan Gerasi, CEO of Freefall Aerospace, is here.
Oh, okay.
We were saving it for you, Dano.
Yeah, well, I apologize for being late.
First headline that you could pontificate on for us, please, Dan, and I mean that in very respectful and true. Before you got here, Cabana and I were lamenting you not being here because you talking on Space News is like what I look forward to at Wednesday at 4:00 Eastern every week. So SpaceX did 2 launches within 24 hours. Pretty remarkable. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Dan, thoughts, comments?
Yeah. No, I think I don't know, a week ago it was, oh, gee, they're having issues. Now it's, hey, this is great. I think we're going to get used to this. I think it's going to be, we're going to have SpaceX does 5 in a day. SpaceX does 10 in a day. They've said that in several years they want to be doing 100 or more launches a day. And that's great, but it's not going to be a straight line and it's not going to be pretty. But that said, I don't see, it's not so much a surprise anymore. That's the scary part, is it really news?
No, nobody, you don't see it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, CNBC would report on every launch, and now it's old hat.
I think I said this a long time ago. When Apollo 13, only the 3rd manned mission to the moon, went up, they weren't even carrying any of the mission live until they had the accident. and
Oh, wow.
suddenly it got carried. But otherwise, they had already stopped covering the moon missions live on the third one. So, the attention span of the media is a lot shorter than that of the public.
What'd you say, Dan? I wasn't listening.
I said the attention. Oh, you got me on
I
that one.
can't believe you
I
fell for
see
that.
what you did.
I did fall for it. Right on my face.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Rocket Lab
Mhm.
back in action last night. Launched successfully a satellite for Spire. And that was the first time they had done that in 6 months after they'd had an accident 6 months ago. It took them 2 or 3 months to get approval, and then another 2 months to sort of get all the ducks in a row and ready to launch. And then they postponed it a couple of different times, but it was nice to see Rocket Lab successfully back in action. Got to have some competition for SpaceX out there.
Well, there will be competition. It's just, I think it takes anybody right now 5 years minimum, 10 years more likely to get to the same credibility position that SpaceX has launching, frankly. Either someone's going to have an accident early and then a string of good launches, or they're going to have to go a long time without any problems and then have one, in which case it won't impact them as much coming on the heels of a lot of success. So it's a crapshoot. And I still think it's a crapshoot on these launch companies. Most of them, not the big ones that seem to have their stuff together, but if you don't have a lot of history putting stuff up, then to me, that's the real measuring stick.
Dan,
It's
is
not-
Blue Origin going to get active launching again this year? That is the plan, but do you expect they're going to be able to pull it off, or is there just...
I haven't heard anything. All I'm hearing is just, mumbling on the street that it's still upside down inside that place. The new CEO still doesn't have his arms completely around it. And I know that they're doing a bunch of work on facilities in Florida, which I heard the other day, where they've taken over some government facilities. NASA's giving a lot of people access to facilities for launch and things like that. So nothing surprising there, but I think they're going to have to do something about their ability to launch when they want. And this is where a lot of these rumors have come from about, oh, gee, are they someone who might buy ULA? Are they somebody who might pick up another launcher? That to me is going to probably be the thing we hear about before we get a lot of nitty gritty detail on their launch plans and everything else. I think they need to fix that part of their business first.
Yeah.
It's
Is it
gonna be
possible
tough.
that they would... ULA is going to go for $10 billion? What, do you have any idea what valuation it might be yet?
No. I mean, right away, when you've got something that fell out of Lockheed and Boeing, for sure, they're going to ask for a lot more than it's worth. But
let's call it
I don't
10, let's call it 10 or 15 billion. I'm making that up, but I don't think it's completely out of the ballpark. What
Right.
would Jeff Bezos then have to sell $10 billion of Amazon stock and give it to Blue Origin, or do you think he might eventually even open it up to outside investors finally?
That's a great question, a great series of questions, because there's no way of knowing what he's going to do. He's at that point now where you either, kind of the Richard Branson point, only Blue's much further along, obviously. But this notion of, do I write another check myself, or do I make the company do it and stand on their own 2 feet to do it and absorb it? And we'll go raise some more capital. Who knows? He'd be smarter to use other people's money at this point and to make it, much more legitimate. I think you'll have interesting players who might want to either take a piece. You could see other companies who want some launch capacity might say, hey, I'll go in on some, be a minority owner. Who knows? I'm talking off the top of my head about
But no, I
possibilities.
think you make some sense at this point. Him and I'm assuming Blue Origin's valuation is 30 or 40 billion, and partly just because it's got access to Jeff Bezos's capital. And his net worth is 120, 130 billion. I haven't looked recently, but I'm sure
Well,
it's up there.
They
still.
also have a NASA contract for a station that they have to get done for Orbital Reef, their space station. And Voyager announced that they're going to be using a Starship to launch their station, the Starlab. Of course, that's not really news. It was always designed to fit in a Starship. So no surprise when you see all these cylindrical spacecraft. They're all being designed to fit in take up the entire diameter of a Starship. But I think they're spread a little thin, and I think Blue's going to have to decide if they either tough it out and grow into all these things they started, or prune back a little bit and focus for growth. But the jury's out. I mean, touristy. I'm going to go take a 15-minute flight. That's nice, but that's usually what opens up a market and gets everybody's attention. But no one's going to make a living at that. So, they have to move on.
Seems to me that we always talk about Elon is famous for his optimistic timelines, and from full self-driving, I've owned Tesla. I've owned a Tesla for 5 years, and I've owned Tesla stock for just right at 5 years too, because I bought the stock after I got the Model 3 and loved it so much and had the full self-driving, quote unquote. And, it's certainly over the last 5 years has improved, but I still can't summon my car from my house to the office or something. Right. Now, that being said, on the other hand, Elon never really talked about, hey, we're just going to suddenly have 6,000 satellites in a constellation doing broadband within 2 years of the first launch. I mean, was it not 3 years ago? I remember Elon tweeting, I'm sending this tweet through Starlink. Holy crap, it worked. Wow, it worked. And very cool. But it is just absolutely amazing that Starlink / SpaceX has been able to be as consistently aggressive in progressing their launch cadence, progressing the amount of satellites in the constellation, creating revenue streams, and revolutionizing our world. And, Elon's never, the flip side of him over promising things is sometimes he never even bothers to promise things that he delivers.
Well, show me an enthusiastic entrepreneur with a track record of massive outsized success at an early age who isn't optimistic about the next thing they're doing. And frankly, for him, he pretty much created the markets he's dominating. So, nobody said, oh, we need a Starlink. Nobody was running around saying that, but suddenly now everybody needs one. And we all talked about EVs, and no one would go near them. They were ugly. They were ineffective. No one could charge them. Now he's pushed that envelope so hard that he's legitimized at least his own.
Yeah, that's right.
His own. That's the same thing that Jobs did, though, too.
That's right.
Steve Jobs said, people don't know what the hell they need until I tell them what they need. And then all of a sudden it's the biggest thing out there.
No, that's right.
That's right.
But, I also saw that Neuralink had their first human trial successfully put in. I don't know what that means and what they're trying to do, but
injected.
Well, I think the hope is
they inject it right into the carotid artery.
And the hope is that whoever got that will be able to somehow communicate, despite, I think it was a guy with a terrible spinal injury. Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's what they're focused on for this first group, because I signed up just to be getting all the emails, even though I don't qualify. It's first is all for disability, stroke victims, things like that. It's not a simple technique, but basically they're injecting a mesh into your carotid artery, so that they can go up and just let it spread out over your brain. So sci-fi is alive and well.
I mean, you got to admit that I don't know if I ever talked about this on the calls, but Kurzweil, what's his first name? Ray Kurzweil writes about the singularity and things. And what I love most about it, what he talks about as an investor, anyway, perspective is that the acceleration of innovation. We're standing on the shoulders of giants is sort of the same concept, but it's that what took the first 1 million years of humankind being in existence got us to horse and buggies, and then 100 years after that, 200 years after that, we've got cars, and then 100 years after that, we've got full self-driving cars that almost drive themselves, and it gets faster and faster, and we're seeing that in our lifetimes. Where, as a kid, I watched Star Trek reruns religiously on Sunday nights on KOB NBC station in Albuquerque, and would get in trouble with my parents for staying up. It came on at 10:30, and there was back-to-back episodes, so I'd stay up till 12:30, especially in the summer, and I'd still get in trouble because I had work on Mondays anyway. Point being, you really like it. You literally, the iPad is the Bones's little dial medical device thingy.
The tricorder.
The tricorder. That's it. Yeah. And like, boop, boop. Hey, beam me up, Scott. Like, how long before we're literally, boop, boop. Hey, beam me up, Elon.
Yes. You're taking.
Well, look at Optimus. I mean, Boston Dynamics has been doing robots for 25 years or something. And now
Long time.
Optimus is 3 years old. And
I don't even think it's 3 years. Maybe 2. But
speed
the
at
other
which
thing
they-
about that, while we're on that, this is what Elon does that no one else does, right? Like, it took Boston Dynamics 25 years of human beings creating software code that a machine in the shape of a dog or a human would then implement inside of itself, and hopefully the coders then could come back, the human being coders could come back and tweak it to make it balance and do flips a little bit better. And the idea of the Optimus robot, of course, is it's completely machine learned, and it will do everything it's doing right now is conceivably teaching itself and not having to have a human being literally be like, hey, you balance this with that.
And this is going to be the difference with robots too, because they're all so different. I mean, I've read some pretty detailed comparisons of, Tesla's versus, Boston Dynamics, and some of the capabilities, and the software is far more sophisticated. The tasks that the Boston Dynamics type of a generation of robot is designed for is far greater than what some of the more retail or commercial type productions look like what Tesla's trying to do. So, it'll be interesting. I think Boston Dynamics, that was all about the military, big dog and carrying troops. And as it got better and better and better and better, now you've got Atlas, whatever version it's up to now, it's just scary how human-like they are. But, if we're going to need machines to do the jobs of people, especially in dangerous situations, they're going to end up looking like people. People always say, why do we make robots look like people? It's because they're going to work in the same environments and do the same things we do.
Right. So I read a great article about that the other day. It was robots look and act like us because we only do the things that we can do. We don't know what we can't do. So you can't design a robot to do something that we don't do.
Well, and also, like, if you don't,
Really
if you make the robot 9 foot tall, it can't go through the door. Like, if you make it too wide, it doesn't fit in your living room. If you make it too small, it can't fold the laundry on the table. Like, you have to, the stuff that our world is designed to do, is designed for human beings to do it in.
That's right, and that's how NASA designed the first, like Valkyrie and the the upper body robots that they have on the station that do all the maintenance. So anyway, but I think, the news is the news. It's the same stuff. China's doing stuff, and they're building a bigger fleet, so everybody's getting worried about all their satellites, and this gamesmanship is just going to keep going. As long as it happens, without firing stuff at each other, that's fine. But as human beings typically do, someone's going to do something stupid and create a need for
Don't
somebody
talk
else
about
to
me like
react.
that. Hey, while we're on the topic of space news, Dan, do you know anything about the secretive space plane that China deployed?
No, other than it's secretive. No, it's it's the only issue is that generally, not for this just in particular, but they have a lot of trouble with the mechanics of whether it's orbital mechanics or a lot of the deployment technology. They can get up, they can get down, but it's all the little 300 step maneuvers that have to happen. They're still missing some pieces. And so whether it deployed satellites or not, we don't know. It may have, and they're telling everybody it didn't. We're thinking that we can monitor that and we can watch and see if anything was deployed. Sure, we can. At the end of the day, we're both figuring out ways to do things the other one can't.
And Dan, is it possible that you mentioned, I think the other day, about eyeballs on satellites being able to look around, not back at Earth, not into outer space, but look around at the other satellites in orbit and things. Yep. Is it possible that NASA's going to pay Starlink to start putting eyeballs looking around at the space debris and the other satellites around there? Or is the United States government just going to start sending up their own constellation and include those eyeballs on there? But it is going to happen, right? They've got to look around it to see if China's sending out satellites.
It will happen. The big issue is to see if there's an adversary approaching or doing something to your hardware. So putting eyeballs on the satellites is for the satellites to see if there's anybody in the neighborhood doing bad stuff. Because there's been a lot of that already in orbit with autonomous vehicles and other things kind of banging into satellites or messing with them a little bit to screw up a transmission and then backing off again. So there's a lot of that's going on already. So whatever you read about, it's just a fraction of what's already happened. So I think we're pretty far down that road of watching each other up there. And I think it's going to happen. I don't think it'll be the government will put them on their own satellites. The military will put them on their own satellites, and commercial industry will put them on their own satellites. But it won't be SpaceX. It'll be one of these companies with these tugs that's going to be doing orbit raising or, moving satellites into the proper orbit. Companies like KMI and Atomos and all these others who will be bringing up these packs and going and putting it on, the satellites once they figure out how to attach it and do all that stuff. But that's been in the works for years now.
Dan, the Free Fall Aerospace that you work for does inflatable antennas. Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, we do several kinds of antennas. One of them is inflatable for space and for ground. Our whole thing is very low power, very low cost, very low maintenance, which is a problem with antennas. And so,
would you be interested maybe next week in telling I'd love to just spend 20 minutes hearing you talk about how Free Fall Aerospace is doing what they're doing, what the plans are.
It's very disruptive. Yeah, it's a really cool thing. The reason I was late, I was just up at Arizona State for a lengthy meeting this morning because we're going to be doing a lot of things with that university, most likely becoming their telecom partner on certain things and looking to develop. We've proposed a ground station for the university that we're working on with them. And for several other universities. So we're going to be doing something around ground stations for universities, starting with ASU. So that's going to be exciting. They're going to help us.
That is very exciting
out there. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool.
What led me to the question? Let's plan on that next week. We'll promote it on Twitter too. Both my personal and the SKTLs Twitter. I'd love to get some people in here to ask you questions too. Dan, is there going to be an increasing number of inflatable satellites?
well, inflatable antennas,
But just inflatable satellites. That
inflatable
way,
spacecraft.
if something bumps into them, it just deflates and falls to the earth, or it would bounce off of them if it's not a sharp edge or something.
Well, I think the notion of inflatable for spacecraft, and this was something that was floated for some of these space station designs. These inflatable, I mean, they're rigid. They've got coatings and things like that to protect against micrometeorite impact. But I think you'll see some inflatable spacecraft because they're easier to deploy. You don't have to send it up fully constructed. The space stations will be going up fully built. Satellites, inflatable satellites, it's a different story because the large ones, there's so much mass, weight, and electronics and everything else. You need a structure, a bus, as it's called, that the body of that spacecraft. For some of what we do for much smaller satellites, that's what we've done with our inflatable. We've got the antenna attached to a little CubeSat satellite. So it's very small, weighs next to nothing.
Yeah.
And you go that route. The inflation works really well for the antenna part, but for the body, there's
The
too
inflation works great for the antenna part, not for the J. Powell economy. That was an economic space joke. All at once, a bad dad joke about space economy. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate you guys being here. That's good for me today.
Wait.
He'll be here all week.
I'll be here. I'll be here next week, same time. Come on back. I got more dad jokes about space and economy. I really am proud of my joke there. It's about as good as it gets for a space economy guy. Hi, Sanatsi. Last questions or comments, and we'll wrap this sucker up this week.
Yes. I pasted a link in the private chat and on autonomous driving. And I thought I mentioned this in one of our past meetings. I had to look back at my notes. You saw me, looking to my right. So I have notes from December 22. This was a talk in the ACM, Association for Computing Machinery. You might want to take a look at this company. They are based in Toronto, Canada, if I'm not mistaken. So what the interesting thing is, they believe that I have to look at my notes because I don't have it I didn't have it, commit to my memory. Black box, AI first approach definitely does not work. And the approach basically is converting maps and sensors to the neural network, typically. And their approach, they claim that is an interpretable AI-first approach. And they have what they called really a revolutionary simulation, and it is really at the core of their offering. And it is reactive, immersive, and they can clone the basically entire world, with their simulator. So it is. I'm looking at this. They can definitely verify and validate their simulator, and it's interpretable by humans. They can basically.
It's called Black Box Corporation. Did we lose Sanatsi?
He's frozen.
Sanatsi waited the whole meeting to tell us something, and we lose.
All right, he's back.
Sanatsi, we
I'm
lost
back.
you.
I'm sorry. I realized because I saw basically spinning circles. So I might want to take a look at their website and see.
What's the name of the company again?
It's Wabi. If you look at the private chat, I pasted
Which private chat
link.
Right here for the
the
room.
All the way on the right.
all the way on the right, StreamYard. Private chat.
Can I share it with everybody, not just private?
No, you can share it if you want to.
There you
Yeah.
go.
There you go. So I might want
Oh,
to take a look at it and maybe report back after next week at the dance or in a few weeks.
Wabi.ai. Yeah, we'll check that out after Dan. We'll do not next week because it's all about Dan next week.
We'll do it afterwards.
Basically, it's all about Dan every week, as far as I'm concerned. But next week, officially all about Dan. And then
It'll be show and tell February.
Show and tell February. This is brilliant.
There you go. We need somebody for week 3. So.
Show and tell.
That's you. Guys, I don't know. You guys weren't here for this, but I said Mr. Cabana, and then I realized actually Cabana's his first name. It's Mr. Crypto. So we'll have Mr. Crypto talk. We'll have him do a presentation in the next week after that. So Cabana, you just
I think Joe's posters, like a walkthrough of Joe's posters individually, would be way better. Like 5 minutes on each.
Oh yeah,
dude, I thought you might do Pulse Chain, Pulse, Hex, T tokens, T shares? Is that what it's called?
T shares, yeah.
T shares, yeah, man. Maybe I would genuinely enjoy you teaching us the Hex world and what T shares, how they actually fit into it. That would be cool. So I just volunteered you for that. You offline, you can text me and tell me you're not doing it, but as of the end of this call, you're locked in. All right, guys, it's earnings. Oh, come on, Sanatsi, it's earnings.
15 seconds. I did buy your book on options.
I'm going to send it to you for free.
I don't know if your email that I received, I don't think it said that.
We're trying to get you on the bestseller list.
So I bought that, and I also texted the Piper because I don't know, if he's busy or not, because he was supposed to be back from Orlando this past Sunday. So I asked him if he can meet tomorrow or Friday to finalize the reward calculation. Thank you.
That is great. No, and as you know, I'm just teasing you all the time, Sanatsi. I'm going to grab our book though, so that you guys can. Here, I'll share it in the link in case anybody's watching. It the prior book we wrote became called The Great Semiconductor Shift. It became the #1, not bestseller in its category, but the #1 trending book in its category after we published it. And for the record, Cabana, Everything You Need to Know About Investing, my original first book I ever published,
yes,
it did reach #1 on all of Amazon best-selling books after I released it. That was highlighted.
That's all Sanatsi was trying to do. He's trying to contribute. So,
yeah. So check out the book if you're interested in learning how to trade options. It's now in the link underneath. Peace and love, everybody else. Dan, thank you for being here. Can't wait to put you on the hot seat next week.
Show and tell with Dan. We'll have to remember to put that as the title of the show.
That will be a great one. Thank you, guys. American Badass, a.k.a. Joe Henderson. Appreciate you. Sanatsi, as always, thanks for being here and helping us with keeping those counts straight. Cabana, peace and love. Thanks for hosting.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
See you guys.
Be safe.